Hello, statistics. Welcome to chapter 3 homework. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to start talking a little mean, median, mode, mid-range. One of the things that you're going to want to be able to look at is you see this piece right here. We used it last chapter in chapter 2. If you click on it, we're going to open in StatsCh3Part1. It takes a second for it to pop up in StatsCh3Part1, but what it's going to do is it's going to open up all the data. I'm going to do stat, summary stat, column. I need to select variable 1. So it's going to, once I click on it, it comes over this way. I wanted the mean. I need to come down a little bit. I also wanted the median. When I hold it down, your control button, CTRL, you have to hold that button down. As I hold that button down, I'm going to click on all that I need. So we needed our mean. We also needed our mode. We needed our median, and I don't believe mid-range is in here. I'm going to hit compute, and right here I have some of the numbers that I need. I can pull StatsCh3 over to the side. So now when it asks for my mean over here, it's going to tell me to type an integer or a decimal. So I need 6,388 and 6/10. And it's going to tell me we did a great job. The median, I'm going to come back. The median was 6,332. Nice work. And now it's going to want to know if there's a mode. You see how this told me there's no unique mode? There is no mode. Remember, for mode, you can have one mode, you can have no mode, or you can have multiple modes. So if multiple numbers show up the same number of times, you can have multiple modes. So let's go back and look at these pieces. So we just did a black box. We put it in StatsCh3. What does that tell us? Mean is going to be what? That is going to be the average. Add them all up, divide by the number of items you have. The median, you need to order them from smallest to greatest. Remember your median, right down the middle of the road is the median. So it's going to be the numbers in the middle. If there's an odd number of things, it's just the number in the middle. If there's an even number of things, you need to average the two middle numbers together. That means you add them together and divide by 2. Mode, who happens the most? MO is most. And now this is where we're going to have a little bit more work to do. It wants the mid-range, but I didn't have mid-range in StatsCh3, so that means I need to do a little bit more work. If we don't know what to do, where do we go? We go to question help. We can go to view an example. If we go to view an example, what I like to do as I'm going through is I just hit continue all the way down, because then it gives me all the pieces. Then I can go back and I can read them all. Well, one of the things that we need to do for the mid-range is it's the maximum plus the minimum divided by 2. So if I come back into StatsCh3, we want to edit this. And what are we going to add? We are going to add our minimum and maximum. So I have my minimum and my maximum. I'm going to compute it again. It's going to tell me my minimum is 4,203 and my maximum is 9,112. So I'm going to open my calculator. So I have 4,203 plus 9,112 equals divided by 2. 6,657 and 5/10. So now I'm going to come back in here, and for my mid-range, we're going to close out our, we are going to write what? 6657.5. And it's going to tell me well done. And so do the different measures of center differ very much? So what's going to happen here is the different measures don't differ very much, because of a mean is 6,396, a median is 6,288, and the mid-range is 6,606. So they're not differing by a large amount. And you notice that the other ones all say that there is a difference between, they vary by a large amount. When we go to our next question, The next question is going to ask me to find the mean median for 2 sets of samples. So what I need to do here is we're going to come again. Make sure you close your StatsCh3, otherwise it won't be able to open. So now, when I open it, it's going to give me 2 columns. It's going to give me a column for Terry and a column for David. I'm going to do the same thing, stat, summary stats, column, because it's in columns. This time, I'm going to click on my Terry, but then I need my control button to hit David. And you notice I'm going to have Terry and David here for my columns. It's asking about the mean and the median. So I'm going to grab my mean. I'm also going to come down and get my median. One thing some people like to do is they like to put all the summary stats in there. That way they have them all. I'm going to hit compute. Now it's going to tell me Terry's mean is 5. So then if I come back and I look at the mean number of letters per word in Terry's book is 5. Median for Terry is 3, so median for Terry. So this is just like reading a multiplication table. This is Terry's, 5 is the median and 3 is the median. 5 is the mean and 3 is the median. Mean for David is 3.1 and the median is 3. Compare the 2 sets of results. Does there appear to be a difference? Well, the mean's pretty different, right? Terry's mean is 5 and David's mean is 3.1. So yeah, Terry's are going to be longer than in David's book. So for question 3, it's asking about using magnitudes of earthquakes listed in the data. Find the mean and the median of the data set. So you do have to click on this to get the data. You're then going to click on this icon again and open in StatCh3. Once you open it in StatCh3, we're going to do the same thing. Stat, summary stats, column, select variable 1. We want the mean. And we also want that median. That median loves to hide on me. And we're going to compute. And this is going to tell me what that my mean is going to be 1.5834. One of the things I want you to notice here is round to 3 decimal places as needed. So remember, when we're rounding, 3 decimal places is going to be 5 tenths is the first, 8 the hundredths is the second, 3 the thousandths is the third. I'm going to look to the right. The right is the number 4. If the number to the right is a 5 or above, you're going to put that number up 1. Otherwise, he stays exactly the same, 1.583. And then the median, they also want rounded to 3 decimal places. Well, I only have 1.45. Remember droppable zeros. I can add a 0 at the end, and that will not change the value. So 1.450 is the same as that 1.45. Is the magnitude of an earthquake measuring 7 on the Richter scale an outlier when considered in the context of the data? Yes, because the value is very far away. The mean is only 1.583 and the median is 1.45. We're talking 1.5 versus 7. That's a huge difference. So I skipped a couple questions in between. The ones that I skipped had to do with measure of central tendency. A census is not a measure of central tendency. The mean, median, mode are. The reason I stopped on this one is the sample standard deviation. Sample starts with an S. So S is going to represent the sample standard deviation. S squared is the sample variance. The population standard deviation is going to be this symbol right here. And the population is that symbol squared. What's going to happen is we're going to be able to calculate a variance. It's going to be the sum of the value minus the mean squared, and then we're going to divide that. If it's a population, we'll divide by the number of things we have. If it's a sample, we're going to divide by n minus 1. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But as we go through this, you do want to recognize these symbols. And remember, S is for sample. Variance is always squared, and the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. The reason that we have to do that is as we calculate our variance, all of our units become squared. We cannot do anything comparing a value to the units with it squared, inches to inches squared. We can't say 6 inches plus 7 squared inches. We have to make it into a standardized piece. What we do is we take the square root, which is the standard deviation, and that's what we're going to add and subtract with once we start finding confidence intervals. So now as we go through, this is asking some more data questions. I'm going to select my data, and we're going to open in StatCh3. Again, summary stats column, select our variable, variable 1. This one wants to know about our range. It's also asking about what? It wants our sample variance and our sample standard deviation. So we have a variance and we have a standard deviation, and we want to make sure sample versus our population, because remember, our sample we divide by n minus 1, and our population we just divide by n. So here it is going to calculate our sample. So I just selected variance, standard deviation, and range, and I hit compute. And my range is 29, which is what I have. Our sample variance, 129.2. Note it wants it rounded to the nearest tenth. Remember, dimes, there's 10 dimes in a dollar, so that's going to be that first decimal place. And this also wants it rounded to the nearest tenth, but when they give me 11.366618, I need just these pieces. But if I look to the right of the 3, it's a 6. A 6 is a 5 or above, so the 3 becomes a 4, 11.4. So our next question is going to ask about the estimated standard deviation. So I can't use StatCrunch for this, but I have an example. So as I go through, it's going to tell me my sample standard deviation is going to be the range divided by 4 if I have to estimate it. So here, my range is what? My range is 39, so I'm going to do 39 in my calculator divided by 4, and that's going to get me 9.75. They want the estimated rounded to 3 decimal places, 9.75. I need to put that 0 because it wanted 3 decimal places. As you can see, the calculated standard deviation was an 11.1. And so is an acceptable approximation? Yeah, because the error of the range of rule of thumb is less than 15%. So the way I'm going to calculate it is going to be the percentage change. It's going to be the estimated 9.75 minus the actual of 11.143. So 9.75 minus 11.143. And that's going to give me the difference. And I'm going to divide that by the actual, 11.143. And that's going to give me a 12.5% difference. Remember, percentages, I moved my decimal point over 2 places. So 1, 2, so 0.125 is 12.5%. And so 12.5% is less than 15%. So the measure of variation that's sensitive to extreme values is the range, because the range is your maximum minus your minimum. So if you have a maximum that's really high or a minimum that's really low, it's going to be considered an outlier, but it's going to change your range and it's going to make it have a larger range. The mean and the median, that value is going to be brought down a little bit. A histogram is just a picture, so that really doesn't have anything to do with that. The range rule of thumb, the range divided by 4, we did that before. For data set having distributions approximately bell-shaped, the empirical rule states about 68% of all values fall within 1 standard deviation of the mean. 95% are going to fall within 2 standard deviations, and 99.7 or almost all will fall within 3 standard deviations. In my next video, because I'm almost out of time on the count for this one, we're going to talk a little bit more about the empirical rule and what we're going to do with those standard deviations. Have a great day.